Hi, it's Ben. So this is just some more of the lease option resources that I've been talking to you about. Just sitting in the car waiting to do the school run. What we're going to talk about today is how you identify if a deal is suitable for a lease option. One of the questions I got asked. The very simple answer to that is you actually don't know. You don't know if something's going to be right for a lease option until you start having a conversation with the seller. First of all, you should never actually go into a conversation or a telephone call or an appointment or a meeting with somebody who wants to sell the house with the idea that I'm going to do a lease option. I'm going to try and sort of pigeonhole it into what you want to do, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. So you've got to ask a whole bunch of kind of open questions. You need to get the dialogue going. You don't know. It's a bit like that sort of doctor of sort of property, really. Until you can prescribe what the right solution is, you need to know what the problem is, what they're hurting from. So you've got to ask questions. You've got to ask open questions that get them talking. When you're also discussing with people what they want to do with regards to selling their property, you need to be doing kind of the minimum amount of the talk and the conversation, and you want them to be having the majority of the conversation, opening up and telling you what the reason is why they want to sell their property. And that's your role. Your role as the property investor is to discuss, understand what the challenge is, and solve that problem for them. So you've got to have a kind of a fairly sort of open chat, ask lots of questions. You might want to actually have a list of the types of things that you want to cover in that conversation. And what I've included with this email is actually like a telephone inquiry sheet. Look, is it perfect? No, you've probably got better ones. But some of you may never have ever had anything or any sort of structure when you have a conversation, so it makes sense to have this. So feel free to download that and use it. If you've got any enhancements or things you think that should be on there, look, please tell me, let me know. I'm always open to improve my own abilities as well. So, one of the things to remember when you're talking to somebody about their property, if they really want to sell that property, if they really want to get that house moving on, be it a landlord, a homeowner, whatever, they will do whatever they can to help you to buy it. So if you've got somebody motivated, they will answer all the questions. They'll come up with information that you need to assess whether it's a deal that you can do and whether you can help them. So if they want it to happen, they'll help you to make it happen. Just remember that, okay? Very early on in my sort of negotiations of the telephone stuff, I was really concerned to get it absolutely perfect, right? Ask all the right questions in the right order. No, that's not the case. You've just got to open up a dialogue, find out what the hurt is, see if you can help solve their problems, and provide a bunch of solutions for them. Right. So, what does a lease option deal look like? To be honest, who knows until you get into that conversation. Does somebody have a real motivation to sell that property? If they do, then maybe a lease option is a solution for them. It may be one of many solutions for them, or it may not be right for them at all. But you've got to ask the right questions. So, sorts of people or sellers where this might fit what they're looking to do, it could be that they want to sell for what they believe is the right price. Now that might be slightly above market value. It might be at market value, it might be less than market value, but it's what they believe is the right value for their property. If it's their home, if it's their investment, it's the right value for their property. Also, nothing that's going to kind of give you a flag for somebody that might suit this is somebody that doesn't need the cash right now. Ultimately, in any sort of property transaction, a property has two parts. It's normally made up of a cash bit and a debt bit. The debt bit is going to be the mortgage that's on the property or any lending that's on the property or loans against it. The cash bit is the equity that they are going to get when they sell the house. So that cash bit, when do they need it? Do they need it straight away? If they don't need it straight away, that's kind of a tick in the box for this could possibly be a solution that a lease option is going to serve for them. They must have some reason for moving on from the property. It could be anything. It could be a divorce. It could be a new job. It could be they're emigrating. It could be they're a landlord. And there's so many sort of tax issues that are coming out for landlords. It could be they want away from the property because of that. It could be, and I've had this before, where people are moving in together. So boyfriend, girlfriend, or couple getting together. They've both got two properties. They only need to live in one. They've watched Nightmare Tenants from Hell on ITV1 and don't want to rent it out. So they want a solution where they can sell it. If it's not selling for whatever reason, then it's going to be something that might fit in the option. Sellers that might be interested in this, it could be where they've got difficult properties. What I mean by that is It could be like a 3, 4, 5 bedroom property right on like a crossroads of a main junction. No front garden, very little back garden, very busy, very noisy near to a motorway. Every time somebody comes around for the estate agents, look at it, they say, oh, it's too noisy. Where are the kids going to play? Oh, I don't like the noise from the cars out front, blah, blah, blah. So those sorts of difficult properties, again, you might have an option that can, no pun intended, you might have a solution that could be a lease option that helps them. It probably might have been up for sale for quite some time. Who knows why? Market might be difficult in that area. Again, there could be a landlord that just had enough of being a landlord and is trying to get rid of, either some or all of their properties or certain types. I was speaking to a guy just recently who's got some leasehold flats, and it doesn't fit in with the criteria of the rest of his portfolio. So, again, you've got to look at how it potentially works for them to move this property on and how you can solve the problem. So, how do you actually introduce the concept of a lease option to any particular seller? Well, that's always the biggest question I get asked. Well, how do you start talking about a lease option? Well, the first thing is you don't talk about lease option. Now, they won't get it because you're trying to. It's like you speaking to a solicitor or an accountant and them talking about sort of difficult legal jargon or high maths or whatever or tax accounting. It'll go over my head. And same with a homeowner or a landlord who just wants to sell their property, move on. So you provide them with a solution that gives them what they want. So find out what they want and give it to them. One of the best ways of doing that, and again, come back to being the doctor of property. And once you found out what the problem is, you can then prescribe the solution. And one way of doing that is what I call third-party offsets, which is where you have a solution that has worked for somebody else. And you think, well, look, I'm just talking to you and thinking about what you've explained to me with regards to your situation and want to sell the property on. Some of the things you've sort of talked about and made me think about Mr. and Mrs. Smith that I was working with just recently. Similar sort of situation. They wanted to sell the house because of X, Y, Z. And what we came up with between us was a solution that worked for them. Now, I'm just thinking if it worked for them, it might be something that would work for you. Any objection if I just tell you how it worked for them and you can give me your sort of feedback on it? So all you've done there, you've kind of asked permission, you've focused it, you've put the idea in the head, and now you're going to tell them how it worked for somebody else. Now, where this is important, a third-party offset doesn't say, look, Ben says this is the way you should sell your house to me. What it's actually saying is, look, this is how it worked for Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So you say, well, look, it's already worked for somebody else. This isn't something new I'm coming up with. And actually what could happen here is that I think it might be something that's similar sort of conditions that would work for you as well. So why don't I just tell you about it? You can then tell me whether you think it's going to work for you or not. And by the way, if they say no, it won't work for you, won't work for them, guess what? All you've had is one no to something that worked for somebody else. It's not a no against you. So all you then need to do is come up with some other third-party offsets you think might also work and float those ideas to them as well. So all you're doing is you're floating ideas. It's almost like you're sitting there with a GP in the surgery and he's typing on his sort of his computer and finding the drugs that might work that's going to help your bad back. Now all you're doing is providing something that might work, and that doctor says, well, are you allergic to? Well, I'm allergic to X, Y, Z. Oh, right, well, it can't be that one. But I'll tell you, what about this one? So all you're doing is you're introducing ideas, okay? Now, what I suggest you do is get some stories, and this could be people that you've spoken to on the phone, there could be scenarios that you've come up with, it could be deals that you've done, it could be deals that other people have done that you've talked to at networking events, it could be videos you've seen like this. Now, over the coming weeks, I'll send you some videos of me negotiating on sort of deals over the phone, so you can build up ideas of how these things work. But start using those and say, well, look, here's a transaction that my partner and I did recently. I could be your partner. It could be your next door neighbour. It could be the guy that you know down at the local monthly networking property meet. But you can explain that is something that you know has worked for somebody else, and you give them a live example of that, and you're just saying it might work for them. So that's what I suggest you do. There's a great question that I have when I'm starting off a conversation, which is this. And this is your opener to get anybody to have a conversation with you and tell you the information you need to help them solve their problems in their property. And the question goes like this. Would you have any objection if I asked you some questions that allow the two of us to come to a solution that's going to be what you want? Would you have any objection if I asked you some questions over the phone here today that allow the two of us to come to a solution that gives you what you want? Can you see how that is? It's a nice, relaxed way of asking them, is it permission? Can you give me permission to ask you any old question I want about your property, the finances, how it's going to work for you, what's going on with your life at the moment? That gives you the permission to do so. Right, so let's kind of give you a bit of background into what you should maybe be looking out for, how you can start the conversation, but it won't always be a lease option. Now, you may be like me and just do lease options. Now, if it's a BMW deal or an HMO deal or all sorts of other things, it may not be something that works for you. So there's two things you need to do. First of all, build relationships with estate agents. Have an estate agent that you know, if they just want to sell it normally, you say, look, hey, Mr. Estate Agent, I've got this these guys, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, can I put you two in touch? That builds your relationship with the estate agent, and guess what, you might get some deals to him as well. The alternative is other investors. So if you know somebody who's really into HMOs and this fits that and it doesn't fit your strategy, pass it on to them and start that flow of deals going back and forth between you. And you're helping the seller. You're giving the seller the solution they want. It's just that you couldn't actually give it to them, but you know a man who can. And that really gives you some big kudos and big sort of brownie points with whoever you end up working with. And alternatively, if it doesn't go anywhere, here's the key thing you must do with that conversation. Put it into your hopper. 3 months later down the line, you might find that actually your lease option proposal and the way that you'd floated ideas and the third-party offsets you give them, suddenly that is really appealing to them. So put it in your hopper and do the follow-ups. There's so many deals in the follow-ups and so few people do them. Anyway, that's it. That's about 11 minutes of me chatting on in the car. It's now definitely time for me to go and pick up my daughter. Let me know if any of this makes sense. If you've got any thoughts or questions or response to it, then let me know. Email me back. If you've got any other things that you'd like me to share with you, think could help, again, just let me know. I'll put another video together. I'll put some more resources out there. Have a look at the attachment that I've got here, that sort of telephone inquiry sheet. If you've got any advice or comments on that, then shoot it back to me. Apart from that, I'll speak to you in the next video. Take care. Speak to you soon. Bye.